The forest was quiet, yet it carried a heavy weight. Mist curled around the ancient trees like pale ghosts, and the full moon hung low, its red glow spilling across the moss-covered ground. The Alpha Pack had gathered in the sacred clearing, their forms dark and tense beneath the silver light. Normally, their howls would echo like thunder, declaring their dominance across the forest. Tonight, however, the forest heard only silence. Grief hung thick in the air. The cubs of the Alpha Pack were gone. No one knew where or why, but the loss had hollowed the hearts of every wolf. The elders lowered their heads, their fur bristling with sorrow. Young wolves whimpered quietly, circling where their tiny siblings once played. The Alpha leader, a massive silver wolf with eyes like polished steel, sat at the center of the gathering. His chest rose and fell with slow, controlled breaths, but even his strength could not mask the tremor of pain in his shoulders. This should not have happened, he muttered under his breath, his voice low and rough like gravel over stone. The pack waited silently. Words had little meaning tonight. They shared only the weight of loss and the empty space where hope had once lived. From the edge of the clearing, a figure moved cautiously. She was human, a lone Omega, wandering where wolves feared to tread. Her dark hair flowed over her shoulders, and her green eyes were wide with concern. She carried something in her arms, wrapped carefully in a soft cloth. Each step she took was careful, respectful of the grief that filled the clearing. The Alpha's gaze snapped to her, his muscles tensed. Humans rarely entered the heart of his territory. Most were afraid of the wolves' wrath. Many had fled the forest long before seeing its secrets. But this human, she approached without fear. "What are you doing here?" His voice rumbled, low and commanding. "This is no place for humans." The Omega paused, holding her arms closer. I mean no harm," she said softly. "I only came because—" She hesitated, her voice trembling. "I think I can help." The pack's eyes narrowed, fur bristling with suspicion. Wolves could sense danger, magic and intent in ways humans could never understand. The Alpha leaned forward, a low growl building in his throat. "Help? How can you help when death walks among our cubs?" She stepped into the clearing, ignoring the cautious murmurs of the pack. "They are not gone," she said firmly, lifting her arms. "They are alive." The pack froze. The elders' ears twitched. The younger wolves crouched low, ready to leap if needed. A silence fell so heavy that the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, she unfolded the cloth. There, nestled in her arms, were the cubs. Their tiny chests rose and fell as they slept, fragile and trembling, but very much alive. The moonlight fell on their fur, soft and warm, illuminating their small, delicate features. The Alpha's eyes widened. His gaze locked on the cubs, and a shiver ran down his spine. "Impossible," he whispered. They should not be here." The Omega looked up at him, her expression calm but resolute. "I found them," she said. "The curse that took them. It tried to claim them, but I was able to carry them out of its reach." Murmurs ran through the pack. A curse? They had heard whispers of old magic, of spirits that hungered for young life, but none had dared speak its name aloud. The Alpha lowered his head, studying her carefully. Humans rarely survived near these woods, let alone carried children through such danger. "You are human," he said slowly, almost to himself, "and yet you hold what death could not take. Who are you?" "My name is Ilara," she said, her voice steady now. "I have always walked between worlds. I can sense what others cannot. The cubs, the forest. It spoke to me. It guided me here." The Alpha's ears twitched. Wolves trusted instincts above all else. Something about her was different. She did not radiate fear or weakness. Instead, she radiated something quiet, powerful, and strangely familiar. He felt it in his chest, a tug at the corner of a memory he did not remember having. One of the elders stepped forward, her gray fur shimmering in the moonlight. "Alpha," she said softly, "we cannot ignore this. She brings hope where we have only known despair. Perhaps—" Her voice faltered. "Perhaps this human is meant to help us." The Alpha's gaze remained fixed on Ilara. The pack waited, tense, for his decision. He could not allow her to approach closer without knowing her intent, yet his heart, buried beneath years of pride and grief, ached at the sight of his cubs breathing again. Finally, he gave a low, reluctant nod. "Step forward, human. But know this, any deceit, any false step, and you will not leave this clearing alive." Ilara stepped closer, placing the cubs gently on the soft moss. They stirred, blinking their tiny eyes in confusion but quickly settling again under her gentle hands. The Alpha crouched, his massive head lowering to sniff them, and the pack followed suit. A cautious hush fell. The cubs whimpered, then blinked, then moved a little, exploring the ground with fragile paws. A spark of hope ignited in the Alpha's chest, a feeling he thought had been lost forever. Yet, alongside it, a chill ran down his spine. He could feel something lingering in the shadows. The curse was not gone. It had followed her here, drawn by the cub's life force and by her presence. "Do you understand what you have done?" he asked her, his voice softer now, though still commanding. "You have brought life back to those we believed lost, but you also bring danger with you." Ilara met his gaze without flinching. "I know," she said. "And I am ready to face it." The Alpha studied her. Wolves did not often trust humans, and yet, here she was, fearless, carrying what he could not protect. He felt the stirrings of something unfamiliar. Admiration, curiosity, maybe even a trace of longing. The forest shifted around them. Shadows deepened, curling like smoke among the trees. A low growl echoed from the darkness, and the cubs stiffened. Ilara's eyes widened, but she did not move away. Instead, she whispered to the cubs, a soft, melodic tone that seemed to calm them. The Alpha growled low in his throat, a warning to the unseen force. "Show yourself," he demanded, voice sharp and steady. "We will not cower in our own home." From the shadows, a figure began to emerge. It was massive, its form shifting and shadowy, almost unreal. The air chilled, and even the Alpha's fur stood on end. The pack braced themselves, muscles tense, teeth bared. Ilara stepped forward, placing herself slightly between the Alpha and the shadow. She raised her hands, and a faint glow emanated from her fingertips. The shadow paused, as if sensing something in her, something familiar, something alive. The Alpha's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" he growled. "What power do you hold, human?" Ilara's voice was steady, calm, almost whispering in the tense night. "The power to save them," she said, "and the courage to face what comes." The shadow recoiled slightly as though recognizing her strength. Then it hissed, fading back into the darkness, leaving only the weight of the night and the soft sounds of the cubs breathing. The Alpha exhaled slowly, tension leaving his massive frame in a shuddering wave. He lowered his head, his eyes never leaving Ilara. "You have done the impossible, Ilara. You have brought life back to those we thought gone." She smiled faintly, tired but unwavering. "They are strong," she said, "and they have you to guide them." For the first time in many nights, the clearing felt warmer. The cubs curled closer, the pack relaxed slightly, and the moon's red glow softened. but the Alpha could not shake the feeling of eyes watching from the shadows, waiting, hungry. He stood towering over the human and the cubs, and his voice rumbled across the forest. Rest now, all of you. Tomorrow we decide how to face what has followed. But tonight, we remember hope. Alara nodded, her gaze lingering on the Alpha. There was a connection forming, unspoken but undeniable. Two worlds, divided by instinct and form, were beginning to recognize something shared: courage, responsibility, and perhaps the first stirrings of trust. And as the wind whispered through the trees, carrying an eerie, low moan from the depths of the forest, one thing was certain. This night was only the beginning. The curse had not yet been defeated, and the forest still held secrets that would test them all, human, wolf, and cub alike. The moon hung above, red and watchful, as the pack settled around the cubs. And Alara, the human Omega, remained at the center, her presence a fragile light against the gathering darkness. Something had changed forever, and nothing would ever be the same again. The forest had changed since the night the human Omega appeared. Mist hung heavier between the trees, and the air pulsed with a quiet, unnatural energy. The cubs, though alive, remained fragile. The Alpha pack moved with careful precision, their senses sharpened by the weight of grief and the lingering presence of the shadow they had seen. Alara walked beside the Alpha, her arms now empty, but her mind burdened with the memory of the cub's peril. She had sensed the forest's darkness long before she arrived, but seeing it take life so easily had shaken even her steady resolve. She knew the curse was not gone. It had only retreated, observing, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The Alpha led the way toward the hidden caves beneath the forest. These caves had been carved centuries ago, walls etched with runes of protection and warning. Wolves spoke of the caves in whispers, calling them the sanctuary of the elders, the place where magic and blood intertwined. Few humans had ever ventured here, and survived. "You trust her," one of the elders murmured, their voice trembling. "Why, Alpha? She is not of our kind. She carries no claw, no fang." The Alpha's silver eyes, sharp and unyielding, did not waver. "Trust is earned through courage," he said softly, almost to himself. "And she has shown more courage than most of us." Alara felt the gaze of the pack on her, a mixture of suspicion and awe. She lifted her chin, meeting each wolf's eyes with steady calm. She could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken question hanging over them. Could she really protect the cubs? Could she survive the darkness that had haunted this forest for generations? The cave mouth loomed before them, jagged and shadowed. The Alpha stepped forward, nose twitching, scenting the air for danger. Alara followed, her steps careful on the uneven ground. Within, the walls glowed faintly with ancient runes, etched in shapes that seemed to shift when no one looked directly at them. "This place, it is older than any of us," the Alpha murmured. "It carries memories of curses, battles, and bloodlines we no longer remember. And yet, it is here, waiting for the one who dares to challenge it." Alara's heart quickened, but she did not flinch. "I can feel it too," she said. "The curse lingers. It is alive, feeding on fear and sorrow. But it will not touch the cubs again. Not if I can help it." The Alpha's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with concern. Humans rarely understood the weight of such magic. Even among wolves, few could comprehend it fully. And yet this human Omega seemed to hold a quiet mastery, a resonance with the forest that few could match. The deeper they walked into the cave, the colder it became. The air itself seemed to thicken, pressing against their lungs. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering and shifting as if they were alive. The pack stayed close to the Alpha, muscles tensed, claws ready. "Alara," the Alpha said, his voice low and steady, "this curse, It is not just magic. It is old. Older than the forest. Older than any pack alive today. It remembers the blood of those who enter here. You must be careful. One wrong step, and it could take you, just as it nearly took the cubs. Alara nodded. I know, she said, and I am ready. The first sign of the curse appeared as a whisper, a soft, haunting voice echoing through the cave. The sound carried a weight that pressed against the mind, urging fear, doubt, and despair. The wolves stiffened, ears flat, growls rumbling in their throats. The alpha's gaze scanned the shadows, sharp and unyielding. It knows we are here, he said. It can feel your presence, human. Stay close. The cubs are safe only as long as we remain vigilant. Alara stepped forward, lifting her hands. A faint glow, soft and silver, pulsed from her palms. The whispering grew louder, a chorus of voices blending into a single menacing sound. The walls of the cave seemed to close in, shadows twisting into shapes that resembled wolves, dark, spectral versions of the alpha pack, eyes burning like embers. The cub's image flashed in her mind, and she focused, channeling the strength of her resolve. You will not harm them, she said, her voice firm. The glow around her hands expanded, casting the shadows back. The spectral wolves paused, as though unsure of their next move. The alpha stepped beside her, his massive form a shield. Do not underestimate it, he warned. This is not the curse's full power. It has only tested us so far. The human Omega nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She knew the alpha spoke the truth. The curse had been alive for centuries, feeding on fear and sorrow, and it would not surrender easily. Yet she also knew that her connection to it, the bond in her bloodline, was the key to overcoming it. They continued deeper into the cave, moving carefully along narrow ledges and past glowing runes. The whispering followed them, growing louder, more insistent. It spoke in the voices of the lost cubs, calling for them, pleading, teasing with glimpses of shadows that vanished when looked at directly. The alpha's eyes softened as he watched her. He could sense the strain, the way her shoulders tensed, the way her hands glowed faintly with exertion. Humans were fragile, yet she moved with a strength he could not understand, and with each step, she earned not only his respect, but something deeper, a trust that he rarely gave and a curiosity he could not ignore. Alara, he said quietly, what do you see? She closed her eyes, letting her senses stretch outward. It remembers the cubs, she said. It remembers their fear, but it does not yet understand hope. It cannot survive where hope lives. The alpha's gaze hardened. Wolves knew the power of hope, the strength of unity, and the courage to stand against impossible odds. Perhaps this human Omega could channel that power in ways even wolves could not. Suddenly, a chill swept through the cave, stronger than any cold they had felt before. Shadows coalesced into a single form, tall, dark, and shifting like smoke. Its eyes glowed with a red light, and the air around it pulsed with ancient magic. You dare enter my domain? The shadow hissed, its voice echoing through the cave walls. You, fragile human, carry what is mine by right. Alara stepped forward, meeting its gaze without fear. They are not yours, she said. The cubs are alive because I chose to protect them. Your curse has no power over life when courage stands in its way. The shadow laughed, a sound like breaking ice. Courage is fleeting. Fear is eternal. You cannot defy what has lasted for centuries, the alpha growled, stepping beside her. And yet we do, he said, his voice firm and unwavering. Together, we will not fail. For the first time, the shadow hesitated. It sensed something in Alara, a connection, a power it had not anticipated. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Alara raised her hands higher. the silver glow now bathing the cave in light. "Leave the cubs," she said. "Leave them, and your curse will weaken. Continue, and you will face all of us together." The shadow recoiled, then slowly faded, its form dissolving into smoke that twisted and vanished into the cracks of the cave walls. The whispering voices quieted, leaving only the heavy breathing of the Alpha Pack and the soft pulse of light from Alara's hands. The Alpha lowered his head, studying her closely. "You survived," he said, awe creeping into his voice. "And you held the curse at bay. How is this possible, human?" Alara's green eyes met his. "Because courage is stronger than fear," she said simply. "Because hope cannot be destroyed, and because the cubs needed me." The Alpha's heart, buried under layers of grief and pride, stirred for the first time in months. He could not deny it. This human Omega had not only saved the cubs, she had also challenged him, forced him to see beyond his own pain and limitations. The pack gathered around, their expressions shifting from suspicion to cautious respect. Even the elders, who had doubted her, nodded silently. The cubs, now safe and peaceful, rested in the moss as if sensing that the danger had passed, at least for now. Alara looked at the Alpha, her expression soft but firm. "We cannot stay here forever," she said. "The curse will return if we do not understand it fully. We must seek its source." The Alpha's gaze hardened. "Then we go together," he said. "And when we face it as one, human, wolf, and cub alike." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the forest felt lighter. The mist still curled between the trees, and shadows still lingered, but hope had returned. The cubs were alive, the Alpha's pack was whole again, and a bond had begun between human and wolf that could not easily be broken. Yet, deep in the cave, in the recesses of shadow and magic, something stirred. A faint, menacing whisper promised that this victory was only temporary. The curse had been challenged, but not defeated, and it would not forget the presence of the human Omega who dared to defy it. The Alpha watched her closely, his mind a whirlwind of protection, curiosity, and something he did not yet name. And Alara, sensing his gaze, met it without fear. Together, they stepped deeper into the cave, toward the mysteries that awaited, and the dangers that would test them in ways neither human nor wolf could imagine. The forest grew darker as night fell again, though the full moon cast silver light that pierced through the thick canopy. Mist curled around the ancient trees, carrying the faint scent of earth and magic. Alara walked beside the Alpha, her steps careful but confident, as the cubs slept safely in a den the pack had prepared for them. The shadow of the curse still lingered, whispering in the wind, reminding them that danger had not vanished. The Alpha moved with steady purpose, his massive form cutting through the mist like a living shadow. His eyes never left the forest ahead, scanning for movement, for any sign of threat. Yet, at times, his gaze would drift toward Alara, and each time he found her calm determination impossible to ignore. Humans were fragile, but she carried herself with a strength that rivaled even the fiercest wolves. "You do not fear the forest," the Alpha said quietly, his voice low, almost a growl. "Most humans would have turned back long ago." Alara shook her head. "Fear is useful only when it guides you," she said. "It does not stop what is meant to happen. Only courage can face it." The Alpha's ears twitched at her words. Wolves understood courage intimately, but rarely did a human speak with such certainty. Her presence disturbed something deep within him, a feeling he could not name. He had spent months mourning the cubs, leading a pack weighed down by loss. Yet here she was, moving beside him, unafraid, and somehow uniting them all with a single thread of hope. They arrived at the ruins of an ancient temple, hidden deep in the heart of the forest. The stones were old and cracked, carved with runes that pulsed faintly under the moonlight. Vines climbed over the walls like silver snakes, and the air was thick with the scent of earth and magic. Wolves rarely ventured here, and humans almost never. The temple was a place where the veil between worlds thinned, where old curses whispered, and where only the brave dared to tread. "This place is powerful," Ilara whispered. "I can feel the magic in the stones. It is alive, watching, waiting." The Alpha stepped forward, nose twitching, ears raised. "It is the source of the curse," he said, "and we are not meant to enter lightly. Stay close." Ilara nodded, and the two of them entered the temple together. The cubs remained hidden in a protective den the pack had set up nearby, watched over by the elders. Inside, the air pulsed with a strange energy. Shadows moved along the walls, whispering voices echoing faintly through the empty halls. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. The shadow of the curse, now more solid, more threatening than ever, loomed tall and twisting. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its voice carried the weight of centuries. "You dare enter my sanctuary," it hissed. "You, human, who carries the life I claim by right." Ilara stepped forward, her hands glowing faintly with silver light. "I claim nothing," she said. "I only protect life. Your curse cannot survive where hope lives." The shadow lunged, twisting like smoke, aiming for the heart of the temple. The Alpha leapt forward, massive paws landing with a thunderous impact. He collided with the shadow, claws slashing through the ethereal form. The wolves' leader had strength, but the shadow was not easily defeated. Its power had grown over centuries, feeding on fear, sorrow, and loss. Ilara focused her energy, feeling the pulse of magic in the stones beneath her feet. She channeled it into a protective barrier around the Alpha, a glow that shimmered like silver fire. The shadow shrieked, recoiling from the combined strength of wolf and human. "You are stronger together than you know," she whispered to the Alpha. He glanced at her briefly, his amber eyes softened by trust and something deeper he could not yet name. "Do not let it harm you," he said, voice low and tense. "I will not forgive myself if it does." Her green eyes met his, steady and calm. "I am not afraid," she said. "Not while you stand with me." The shadow hissed, fury rising. It coiled and struck again, and this time the Alpha and Ilara worked in perfect unison. He leapt, powerful and precise, while she cast her silver light around him. The magic and the strength intertwined, pushing the shadow back, forcing it into the temple's center. The battle raged, the shadows dancing violently around them. Ilara's hands glowed brighter, her breath steady, her focus absolute. The Alpha fought with every ounce of his strength, protecting her, protecting the temple, protecting the forest and the cubs. Then, in a moment of clarity, Ilara realized the truth. The shadow did not simply want to harm, it wanted recognition. It had followed her because of her bloodline, a connection to the ancient magic that had created the curse centuries ago. She was tied to it in ways she had not fully understood until now. "Alpha!" she shouted over the roar of magic. "It responds to me! I can end this, but I need you to trust me!" He hesitated for only a heartbeat, then nodded. "I trust you," he said, voice steady. "Do what you must." Ilara extended her hands, silver light spilling outward, surrounding the shadow. She spoke softly, calling upon the magic within her, the courage within her, and the hope she carried for the cubs. The shadow writhed, twisting violently but slowly. It began to shrink, losing its form, its power fading into the light. The Alpha watched in awe as the human Omega, fragile yet strong, held the curse at bay. Her courage, her connection to life, and her unwavering focus were driving it back. For the first time in centuries, the shadow could not feed on fear. It had no hold here. When the last trace of the shadow vanished, the temple fell silent. Only the soft echo of their breathing remained. Ilara lowered her hands, exhausted but triumphant. The glow faded, leaving only the silver light of the moon spilling through the broken roof. The Alpha approached her, his massive form towering yet gentle. He studied her, searching for weakness, but found none. Instead, he found admiration, awe, and something deeper stirring in his chest. You have done what no wolf could," he said quietly. "You faced the curse and held it at bay. How is this possible?" Ilara shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. "Because courage is stronger than fear," she said simply. "Because hope cannot be destroyed, and because the cubs are worth every risk." The Alpha's amber eyes softened. He had spent months mourning the cubs, feeling their loss like a wound that would not heal. And now, watching this human, he realized that hope could indeed return, that even in darkness life could be saved and hearts could be mended. They stood in silence for a moment, two forms in the moonlight, human and wolf, connected by shared struggle and growing trust. There was a tension between them, subtle but undeniable, a bond forged in the heat of danger, tempered by courage, and strengthened by mutual respect. "Ilara," the Alpha said finally, his voice low, almost hesitant. "We cannot stay here. The cubs, they must be watched. The forest, it still whispers of danger." "I know," she said, "and I am ready to face it. But I cannot do it alone. Neither can you." He inclined his head, a gesture of respect and acceptance. "Then we face it together," he said, "human, wolf, and cub alike." As they left the temple, the first light of dawn crept through the forest. Mist curled around them, softening the shadows, but the Alpha knew the forest would never be the same. Something had changed, not just the curse, not just the cubs, but the bond between him and the human Omega. Ilara walked beside him, her steps steady, her mind alert. She had survived the curse, but she knew this was only the beginning. The forest held more secrets, more dangers, and perhaps more challenges that would test their courage and trust. Yet, as they emerged into the morning light, the cubs safe and the pack watching, a small smile touched her lips. For the first time, she felt the stirrings of something new, connection, belonging, and a sense that perhaps, even in a world of shadows and curses, hearts could find each other. The Alpha watched her closely, sensing the bond forming. He had spent so long in grief, yet this human, fragile yet brave, had shown him a spark he had thought lost forever. And somewhere in the forest, beyond the reach of their sight, a faint shadow stirred, smaller, subtler, but still aware. The curse had been weakened, not destroyed, and it whispered a promise that their struggle was far from over. Ilara and the Alpha exchanged a glance, understanding each other without words. Together, they would face whatever came next. Together, they would protect the cubs, the pack, and perhaps each other. The forest held its breath, waiting, watching, as the bonds forged in moonlight began to take root, and the shadows of the curse lingered, promising that the trials to come would be as much of the heart as of strength and courage. Dawn broke over the forest, spilling gold and silver light through the mist. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of wet earth and growing leaves. The Alpha pack moved quietly among the trees, their steps careful, yet their spirits lifted. The cubs played at the edge of the clearing, their laughter soft and light, echoing like tiny bells through the morning air. Ilara walked beside the Alpha, her heart still racing from the trials of the night. The shadow of the curse had faded, retreating into the deepest corners of the forest, but the memory of it lingered. She looked down at the cubs, seeing life restored in their small faces, and felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was why she had come, why she had risked herself among ancient magic and dark shadows. The Alpha watched her from beside her, his amber eyes softened by relief and admiration. Wolves rarely allowed emotions to show so freely, especially after loss. Yet here, in the quiet of the forest, he could not hide the weight lifted from his heart. The cubs were alive. His pack had hope again, and part of that hope was carried by the human who had dared to enter their world. "You have done what none of us could," he said quietly, his voice low and steady. "The pack, the cubs, they owe you more than I can express." Alara shook her head, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "I owe nothing," she said softly. "The forest guided me. The cub's strength guided me. And your courage guided me as well." The Alpha's gaze lingered on her, studying her calm eyes, her steady posture, the quiet determination that had carried them through the curse. He had spent so long believing strength was only measured in teeth, claw, and size, yet this human had shown him that courage and compassion were equally powerful weapons. The cubs ran to them suddenly, tumbling over each other, their tiny paws leaving small prints in the soft moss. They laughed and squealed, their voices carrying through the clearing. Alara knelt, letting them climb into her arms, her smile bright. The Alpha watched, a strange, unfamiliar feeling blooming in his chest. Pride, relief, and something deeper he could not yet name. The elders of the pack circled around them, their gray fur glinting in the morning light. "The curse has weakened," one said softly. "And it is because of you, human Omega. Your courage. It has restored life where only death had ruled." Alara looked at them all, a flicker of humility in her eyes. "I only did what was necessary," she said. "The forest, the pack. We are stronger when we work together." The Alpha stepped closer, his massive form towering but no longer intimidating. He lowered his head, letting the sunlight catch the silver in his fur. "You are not only strong, human," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "You are part of this pack now, not by blood, but by choice, by courage, by heart." Alara's gaze met his, steady and calm. She felt the weight of his words, the sincerity in them. For the first time in the forest's long history, a human and the Alpha of this legendary pack were equals in trust and purpose. But the forest, though peaceful now, still held its secrets. Shadows lingered in the corners of the trees, whispers drifting on the wind like distant echoes. The curse had been weakened, but not destroyed. Somewhere, deep in the forest, it waited, biding its time, watching and remembering the human who had dared to challenge it. Alara stood, setting the cubs gently on the soft moss. They ran to their parents, tumbling into the Alpha and the other wolves. The sight filled her heart with relief. She had faced darkness and returned, and now she saw the fruits of her courage, the laughter and life of those she had saved. The Alpha lowered himself beside her, his massive head close to hers, his amber eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and admiration. "I underestimated humans," he admitted quietly. "And I underestimated you. You have not only saved the cubs, but reminded us of the strength in hope." Alara smiled faintly, tired but resolute. "Strength is not only in power," she said. "It is in courage, in choices, and in protecting what is dear." The Alpha's gaze softened, and he studied her for a long moment. Wolves rarely spoke such words, rarely shared feelings so openly. Yet here, in the soft light of dawn, he found himself wanting to share more, to bridge the gap between human and wolf, between past grief and new hope. They moved back to the clearing where the cubs played, the pack following close. The elders exchanged glances, sensing the bond forming between the Alpha and Alara. It was more than respect. It was trust, connection, and the spark of something that could grow into loyalty, even something deeper. The forest, alive with the soft chirping of birds and rustle of leaves, seemed to breathe with them. The mist lifted slowly, revealing the path ahead, clear but uncertain. There would be challenges to come, threats that could rise again from shadow and memory. But for now, life had returned, and the pack had hope once more. The Alpha turned to Alara. "You could leave," he said softly. "Return to your world and forget this forest, forget the pack. It would be safe for you." Alara shook her head. "I cannot," she said. "The cubs, this pack, I am tied to them now. My choice is clear." He studied her for a long moment, seeing the resolve in her green eyes. "Then we face the future together," he said. "All of us." A gentle breeze swept through the clearing, carrying with it the faint whisper of the forest's ancient magic. The curse had been weakened. But the wind carried a warning. Even as hope returned, shadows lingered, patient and silent. The Alpha and Alara walked side by side, the cubs frolicking around them, laughter echoing through the forest. For the first time in months, the pack felt whole again, their grief replaced by cautious optimism. The forest itself seemed to acknowledge their unity, the mist softening, light spilling through the trees like a promise. Yet the Alpha knew the truth. Even as life returned, they were not free. Somewhere the shadow stirred, and one day it would return. But now, they had courage, hope, and a bond that would stand against it. And the Alpha knew that with Alara beside him, the pack was stronger than ever before. They reached the edge of the clearing, where sunlight spilled over moss and stone. Alara looked at the Alpha, her expression calm but thoughtful. "We have restored life," she said. "But we must be ready. The curse. It will remember us." He nodded, his massive head turning to sweep the forest with his amber eyes. "Then we prepare," he said. "Not just for the curse, but for whatever comes next, and we do it together." A distant rustle in the trees made the pack freeze, ears raised. The cubs looked toward the sound, curious but safe. Alara's hands glowed faintly, a small shimmer of silver light, ready to protect them again if needed. The Alpha stepped forward, body tense but calm, muscles ready. The forest seemed to pause, holding its breath. A faint shadow flitted among the trees, a reminder that the darkness had not been fully banished. Yet the Alpha and Alara stood together, unwavering, their courage intertwined, their trust in each other unshakable. Alara's gaze met the Alpha's. "We are ready," she said simply. He inclined his head, a silent acknowledgement of her words. "Together," he said, voice low but resolute. "Always together." The cubs tumbled forward, running into the pack, laughter ringing like music in the morning air. The forest seemed to breathe with them, sunlight and mist weaving through the trees. Life had returned, hope had returned, and the bond between human and wolf had been forged in the crucible of courage and magic. Yet somewhere beyond the edge of sight, in the far reaches of the forest, the faintest shadow stirred. The curse had been weakened, but it was not gone. And though the Alpha and the Omega now stood together, ready for what came next, the forest whispered its warning. The story was far from over. Alara lifted her head to the rising sun, taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air. She had faced the darkness, faced the curse, and stood with the Alpha at her side. The cubs were alive, the pack was strong, and hope had returned. And in the silence between heartbeats, a promise lingered. The Alpha pack had been saved, but the human Omega had also changed them forever. A new bond had formed, unbreakable in courage and trust, forged in moonlight, shadow, and dawn. The forest, golden and silver in the new day, held its secrets still. But for now there was life, laughter, and a sense of peace. And Alara knew, as did the Alpha, that together they could face whatever shadows lay ahead. The cubs tumbled into her arms once more, their tiny voices ringing with joy. The Alpha stood close, protective and steadfast, his gaze softening as he looked at her. The sun rose fully over the horizon, light spilling across the forest. And though shadows remained, a new day had begun. Hope had returned. Life had returned. And the bond between human and wolf had been sealed, stronger than any curse could ever undo.